This reference comes from a book called The Negro in the New World by Sir Harry Johnston. We want to go to page 27, and then we want to scroll all the way to the bottom. The Jews are composed of 3 or 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negroid strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, the long eye, and proportions of the skull. The Jewish hybrids with the Negro in Jamaica, and I know I'm going to mess up this name, but we're going to look at it, Guana, reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. All right, let me read that again. The Jews are composed of 3 or 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negroid strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, the long eye, and the proportions of the skull.
The Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee. Thou hast given us like sheep appointed for meat, and hast scattered us among the heathen. Thou makest us a byword among the heathen, a shaking of the head among the people. Because thou servedst not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness. and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
Okay, we're going to go over the book, The Untold Story Revised Edition, and this is written by Edgar Shaw. We're going to start with the first subtitle here, and it's entitled The Expulsion of the Jews from Spain and Portugal. You can kind of read through the paragraph here. In the year AD 1492, January 2nd, the Moorish stronghold of Granada surrendered to the armies of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. For the first time since the year 711, all of Spain was in Christian hands. The decree to expel the Jews from Spain was signed on March 31st. In one of the corridors of the great Alhambra, the palace of the Moorish kings of Granada. So this was signed in one of the great palaces that these Moorish kings who previously had ruled in that land had built. It says the motive given for the expulsion of the Jews was that it was conceived that they corrupted the Marranos, which were basically the Jews that converted to Christianity during the time of the Inquisition. This was done by privately encouraging them in disloyalty to Christianity. The ultimatum given to the Jews elapsed or expired August 1st, 1492. Professor Alan H. Godbey says that the last Jewish king was overruled in Ghana, terminated in 1492. So basically the rulership of the Jews was terminated 1492 in Ghana. It says in order to satisfy Queen Isabella of Spain, King Manuel of Portugal declared a royal ordinance expelling the Jews and Moors from his country. This was nothing new for the Jews. If you read back into the scriptures, you'll read that there was a point in time in which Claudius Caesar had expelled the Jews from Italy. So this was done over and over in times in the past. Okay, it says the Jews who were expelled from Spain and Portugal were scattered. Of course, we read in Deuteronomy 28 and 64 that this was a prophecy that they would be scattered throughout. So they were scattered throughout the Mediterranean coast. It is estimated that over 100,000 Jews departed from Spain and Portugal during the persecutions and expulsions. Some of these Jews went to northern and western Africa. These black Jews, so now he's telling you who they were. He's telling you that they're black Jews. This is the color, this is a description of what they look like. These black Jews would innocently go to African countries, most of all because of the less persecution, and they could semblance themselves easily among blacks. So they can basically camouflage themselves amongst the other blacks in the African lands. R.H.M. Elves gives a vivid description of the Portuguese Jew. Baruch Spinoza, middle-sized, good features, skin somewhat black, black curly hair, long eyebrows of the same color, so that one might know by his looks that he was a descendant from the Portuguese Jews. When the Jews were expelled from Spain, about 100,000 entered Portugal. So 100,000 of these Jews from Spain entered into Portugal by the admission of King John II. It says they were allowed to enter under the condition that they pay the poll tax, with that sense that they would leave the country within 8 months. So they had to pay a poll tax to get in, of course, understanding that in 8 months they would be again expelled from that land as well. Also at this time the king beholden himself to take the Jews wherever they desired at the completion of 8 months. So the king promised that after 8 months, I'll take you wherever you want. I'll set up ships so the ships can take you wherever you want to go. When the time elapsed, many Jews were stranded because the king did not provide enough ships in time. So the king didn't provide the ships during the allotted time of 8 months. It came 8 months, 3 months, 8 months, 3 weeks, maybe 9 months, but they didn't come in time. As a result, all the black Jews who were left behind were deprived of their freedom and sold into slavery, thus fitting the prophecy that you would be sold into slavery by way of ships. During the reign of King John II, or actually John II, 700 black Hebrew children were ruthlessly taken away from their parents in Portugal. So this was an abrupt takeover. They were just taking kids from their parents in Portugal and transporting to the island of Saint Torme off the west coast of Africa. This island is situated, its location is near Nigeria, Cameroon, and Gabon. Alan H. Godbey says that the Portuguese founded the island of Saint Tomé in 1471. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to establish themselves on the west coast, on the West African coast. They came first as merchants, and secondly as conquerors and slavers. With the influx of 10,000 of black Jews from Spain and Portugal seeking refuge in African ports, Morocco received a great share. In Morocco, there was a revival of Moorish and Jewish science in all areas. So you can see that these black Jews were bringing in the sciences, whether it be alchemy, periodic tables, things of that nature, physics, and all these types of sciences, the knowledge of the astronomies, things like that, the cosmos. All these things were being brought in by the Moorish and the Jewish inhabitants that were coming into those lands of Morocco. Okay, it says the Hebrew Academy in Fez, which is in Morocco, competed with the one in Karun in Algeria. There was many debates and lectures between the sages and the scholars of these schools. Eldad, the Danite, a Hebrew from the Jewish kingdom of Ghana, visited these schools in the 9th century. So many scholars were visiting these schools, and they were able to hear these debates by these learned men, whether sages or scholars of these schools. Okay, we're going to stop right there. Okay, we're going to pick up where we left off. Still in the book, The Untold Story, Revised Edition by Edgar Shaw. And we're picking it up from the paragraph. Says that black Jews went to Portuguese colonial possessions in Western Africa, which were Guinea, Saint Tomé Island, Senegal, Angola, and a few islands near the African coast. Throughout the persecutions in Portugal, thousands of Jews left the country. The Jews were leaving the country in such massive numbers that in 1499 and in 1531 the kings published a law forbidding the new Christians, which were the black Jews, from leaving Portugal without special permits. Cecil Roth wrote that Christian Jews immigrating to the Portuguese colony of Angola in West Africa were agents of the Inquisition and were sent to ferret them out in 1612. So this basically means that there were the Christian Jews that had converted to the Caucasian way of Christianity were sent as agents of the Inquisition to basically bring back those black Jews in those lands of Angola and those southern African lands. It says, it is certain that many black Jews of Portugal, São Tomé, and Angola, who became victims of the Inquisition and Portuguese persecutions, were sold into the slave trade. This Atlantic slave trade lasted more than 400 years, from 1444 to about 1880, in various parts of South America. Some scholars have located black Jews within the whole Niger River Bend. The countries in this territory have contained black African Jews, including the following: Upper Volta, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Togo, Dahomey, and Nigeria. So in recap, you had, from the text is telling us that you had those Jews that had sold out to the Caucasian way of Christianity were acting as agents for the crown, which was Ferdinand and Isabella, and taking the true Jews, the ones that were solid to the faith, capturing these Jews, and thus having them deported, captured, and sent into slavery via the transatlantic slave trade. So basically, this is what was going on. Many times we hear that we sold our own people into slavery. I guess according to the text, that's technically true. You did have a great number of Jews that were sellouts, that chose to take upon them the customs of the heathen rather than stay true to the faith. And this has always been the case when you read the history of our people, of the Israelites in the past, whether it be the Roman Empire or the Greek Empire. There was always a faction of Jews that had wanted to join themselves into the heathen, so to speak. And this was the same situation during these times as well, during the Middle Ages, 1400 all the way up until the 1800s as well. So it looks like you had a great deal of sellouts that had joined the Inquisition against their own people, going into the lands of the Dahomey, the Niger River Bend area, Mali, Angola, places like that, and ferreting out those true Jews who were true to the faith, and consequently having these families sold into slavery.
So this particular reference comes from the author called John Ogilvy. He was the cosmographer and printer to the king, and I believe it was King Charles II. So John Ogilvy would be a person of interest. We would want to know what John Ogilvy would have to say, because he would be someone that would have the ear of the king at the time. And we know that in London, they played a major role in the transatlantic slave trade. We're going to go over to page 574. So this is about King John. This is about discussing Portugal and west coast of Africa. This reference is a good reference that shows us who's on the west coast of Africa and who put them there. So halfway down on the page, the Portuguese that dwelt on this island informed the Netherlanders that few lived there above 50 years there. Yet, notwithstanding the great gain, tempted them to tarry. So there's money to be had. It says several of them having 200 or 300 Negroes that worked in the sugar mills. And we have a semicolon that says, it's going to explain it. It says that John III, King of Portugal, that we just read about, right, sent a colony thither above 200 years before. So 200 years before the writing of this book, This book was written in 1670, I think. So 200 years before that book, King John, who was around in the 1400s, he sent a colony there, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed. So the first colony that he sent there, it killed him. It said, yet the place was not left desolate, so they did not all die. He said, for he sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea. Now, if you have a map of Guinea, Guinea is the west coast of Africa. All right. So these people, so the king sent new inhabitants who first settled Guinea, and this is in the 1400s. Next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas, so they might be better used to the air. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves. Let me repeat. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion and caused their children to be baptized. So now you know why the Pope at the time authorized the transatlantic slave trade. So, King John is, the King of Portugal, and we read either 2 or 3 references back that King of Portugal petitioned the Pope for slavery, right? So the Pope issued that papal bull, authorized it, things kicked off. The Pope authorized the Negro slave trade. Well, it looks like we have our answer here.
For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee. And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, and without a prince, and without a sacrifice, and without an image, and without an image. I said I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men, were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, Our hand is high, and the Lord hath not done all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. How should one chase 1,000, and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and the Lord had shut them up?
Concentrated in the shadow of the Soutpansberg Mountains in the far north of South Africa. To the casual observer, they look and live much like any other traditional Southern African community. But if you scratch below the surface, there are some intriguing differences. I want to find out how these people seem to have Jewish customs. Samuel Moeti is president of the Lemba Cultural Association.
Pleasure. So, I'll be honest, I came into this village and the first word I heard was shalom,
Yes.
a Hebrew word.
Yes.
How's that possible? How is it that the Lemba are speaking Hebrew?
The Lembas are the original Hebrews, and they were scattered, as you know, and they crossed into Africa. So they were scattered all over. So in South Africa, in many parts of South Africa, you find the Lembas who are actually Hebrews.
Hebrew. So the Lembas claim to be descendants of ancient Israelites?
Not claim, they are.
They are.
They are.
Okay.
We are the original African Hebrew. We are scattered all over.
Could it be that the Lemba are a lost tribe of Israel? Perhaps the Lemba's oral history, handed down over the generations, can help us make a connection to the lost tribes of Israel. The Lemba's story goes like this. Thousands of years ago, they were forced out of Israel and settled in a place called Senna, which is believed to be the present-day Yemen. There, they lived as traders and craftsmen until war or natural disaster pushed them across the Red Sea and into Africa. Then began a slow migration south. Along the way, according to the Lemba, they built great stone cities. It's a claim that's fascinating. Himmler is convinced that Lemba ancestors did indeed come from the Middle East. I'm excited to get back to the Lemba to see what they make of this. And I've got the perfect opportunity. It's the Lemba's annual festival, and I've been invited. It's hard to believe that these people, who to the casual observer look just like the other African communities they live among, actually do have DNA passed down from Middle Eastern forefathers. This proves that when it comes to race, looks really can be deceiving. This annual festival is a chance for the oral history and traditional songs of the Lemba to be passed on to the next generation. This song tells the story of the Lemba's journey all the way from Israel to South Africa. Having traced this journey, I'm eager to hear what Samuel Moeti thinks about the DNA evidence.
So the genetic testing actually proved to the doubters what you and your forefathers have been saying for generations. That must be exciting news.
It is.
I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of the Lemba. I knew very little about the people. But having spent time making the journey from Jerusalem down through Zimbabwe, having spent time here at this festival, seeing what your people are all about, I can only sum it up in one word, and it's shalom.
Shalom.
we've seen how science has backed up the claims of the Lemba in the face of years of doubt and prejudice. The archaeological clues, the DNA evidence, and the Lemba's own oral history add up to a very convincing argument. It reminds me that first impressions can often be misleading. It was hard to believe that a tribe of black Africans could be the descendants of ancient Israelites. But that's exactly what they appear to be.
Brothers and sisters, they are there. We are not lost. We are scattered. We are original Hebrew.